That's my man going down. 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 That's my man throwing 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 down.
Hi everyone at PAX, my name's Danny and I'm the community manager at Merge Games, and today I'm talking with Kev, who's our lead designer on Small Land, and he's here to tell you all about this wonderful world we've created. So Kev, tell us a bit about yourself, and for those who don't know, what is Small Land?
My name is Kev, I am the lead designer, and we're making Small Land. Small Land is a kind of sandbox survival game with a very kind of unique perspective, lots of kind of story and lore. As you can see, you're this kind of little tiny person in this kind of huge world, and we really want to sell the fact that you're shrunken down and everything is out to kill you. You're on the very kind of bottom of the food chain. And that's kind of the high level, pitch for Small Land, I suppose.
And here we can see quite a unique method of transportation. Can you tell us a bit about getting around in Small Land?
Yeah. So the grasshopper is something that it was going to be like a very traditional kind of survival game where you have mounts that are kind of far off in the distance. You don't get until a good few days of gameplay. But we found that it was just really good fun. We did some tests internally and externally, and everyone loved it. So you work with all these different kind of creatures, including the grasshopper, dragonflies, loads more as well, and you get this kind of weird perspective, and it feels good that you are. I don't think anyone has been shrunken down to be a tiny size, but you kind of get the feeling that you are. So it's been really, really good. And with a lot of our creatures, they're not just kind of motorbikes or cars and things like that. They do have behaviors and attitudes and the things they like and don't like. So we want almost like a Tamagotchi kind of feel to it. So the grasshopper is like your noble steed. It's like a horse and your ally and friend.
Very cool. So here we can see it looks like our small folk is wanting to get across the water here. What challenge does that pose to the small folk?
Right, okay, yeah, so the small folk, they can't swim, so water is a problem. Now, the reason they can't swim is because they have lived underground. So the whole kind of lore of Small Land and all of your goals is to basically take your people and get them out of the ground. So everything is new. They're all learning new things. The materials that they can get hold of now, plants, nectars, types of grass, types of wood, it's all new to them. So they were like a super intelligent race. They were forced underground for reasons I'm not going to go into just yet. And then now they're out again. It's safe again. So everything is new. So they're not like cave people. They're very kind of well educated, but they've been living off, roots and dealing with soil. And now they're going to learn every single thing, bit by bit. And that's your job. That's the kind of big survival element of the game.
Cool. So we've just met Drustin here, who's one of the small folk. So he's obviously dressed a little bit differently, and he's obviously been out for a little bit of time compared to us. So what's his deal in Small Land?
So some of the characters that dotted around, you have to kind of find. We have Pathfinders. The Pathfinders were like the first wave of the small folk to kind of go out, and they are basically observing. Now, each one gives you a perspective on how a creature works. So there's a lot of realism with the creatures. Now, it's not hyper-realistic. You don't need to know everything about nature, but we want these creatures to feel how you would expect to feel. So a bee should work like a bee, and a wasp should work like a wasp, and certain characteristics. Now, these Pathfinders, each one has studied a set of creatures, and they help relay that information to you. Now, some of them get quite obsessed. Some of them look at it and, it's efficient, but some of them are kind of more in love with their creatures. So Drustin is a younger guard. He's a sentinel guard originally. Now he's a pathfinder, and he is obsessed with bees, but in a nice way. In a nice way, he's not kind of crazy. But some other people are.
And then from bees to wasps, we're here now in some vicious combat with some wasps. Tell us about combat in Small Land.
Right, so you've got different types of combat. It's melee and ranged, and also mounts do kind of play into it. Your armor is everything in the game, but some creatures they're angry all the time. Wasps are generally angry about things, so wasps will attack you. Other creatures won't attack you unless you attack them. Others could be scared of you. Now, you've got like a threat rating, almost like on the food chain, and you can go up in the food chain. So at the minute, some creatures they will just fight all the time. Spiders, if you go near a spider and you enter its domain, it doesn't care. Whereas other creatures, let's say something like the red ants, they will run away from threats bigger than them. Or so if you can make yourself feel more scary, they will run away. Wasps, now wasps do get a bad rap in real life. So they do start off as kind of these kind of beginning bad guys, and they have this venom. So they hit you with various different toxins and poisons. That's a really big role in combat as well. So they're a good kind of starting enemy to kind of block you off, quite chaotic, but they won't always be the enemy without spoiling things.
They sound very true to life.
Yeah.
I think
Misunderstood.
wasps have a bad rap for a reason.
They do have a bad rap, yeah.
Yeah, and these ones don't seem particularly friendly.
Not at all, no. But yeah, it's like I say, we want it to be realistic, but also fun at the same time. So we do take some liberties, but everything should be relatable.
Yeah, you have to be able to suspend your disbelief.
Yeah,
there, but
movie logic, But there is some little bits in there as well, which is good where the creatures behave. So yeah, I kind of really like that.
And then we can make good our escape on our trusty steed.
There you go. Yeah, he's always there. If you do spend a lot of time with your steed, eventually he will fight with you as well, which is really cool. Which makes it harsh when he gets eaten as well by the creatures.
I love that it seems like there are little tricks with the perspective where you can sort of slip through cracks in the fence and things like that.
Yeah. So exploration is probably one of the biggest things of the game, and we found that killing wasps and killing spiders, yeah, people liked it. It was really good, but the exploration, and we've designed all the areas to be kind of clearly marked, and there's no kind of big blocking walls anywhere, and we try and get away with that freedom. So as you can see, the grasshopper does leap about 40 meters at full height, and you can skip past things, and you can almost cheat and get to areas, and it feels good. The exploration and these nooks and crannies, and when you find like a hole in something and you squeeze between, it feels really good. We found it was like a very, very kind of powerful part of the game, so we put lots and lots in. So we have whole biomes that are hidden, and it's there for you to discover. So it's one of the strongest things we've come back with all our kind of internal and external testing is exploration, and tying into that perspective as well.
So let's talk about crafting for a little bit, because we're now looking through some of the crafting options that are available to us, and there are tools, there are weapons, there's armor. We're looking at some of the tools available here. So can you tell us a bit about the role crafting plays?
Yeah. So like all good survival games, crafting's a big part of this. You will learn skills of other people, of NPCs. So we want to make it. We wanted to make it feel like you are this kind of Bear Grylls survival character rather than like Superman, and then you rely on other people, the small folk. So the more things you discover and find, the more pathfinders and their knowledge and how bees do one thing or ants do another thing. You take that on board, and then that goes, okay, I'm gonna try and evolve with all that and basically craft things around the knowledge that I've learned, and then that's what's going to kind of level you up and make you more formidable and able to survive. So yeah, it's tons of like crafting things, weapons, tools, bespoke things for different creatures. So again, it all ties into the kind of exploration kind of elements of the game.
And of course, character customization, which is something that the community have really wanted to understand and learn a lot more about.
Yeah, it's huge, because you can play solo, you can play with other players. Having that kind of your own identity was really important. Now our armor is very, very kind of powerful in the game. When you craft the armor, it gives you these cool, unique abilities that make you feel like a creature. So you can be protected against wasps, or you can be kind of anti-spider venom and things like that. But because these armors are very, very powerful, everything has a use. We also want to make again, personalization is really important to us, so to make sure that you feel how you want to, you bond with your character. So one of the big parts of the game is you start off very kind of dusty, very kind of, you've lived underground. So if you've ever seen an insect that lives underground with no sunlight, it's very kind of all white and plain. It's very, very plain. And as you progress more and you spend more time outside and you do more things, you level up and you become not only more unique, but you get more fidelity. So we start off by giving you more colours and more choices, and then you have two tones, and you have extra layers of customization. So again, it's all about your character, your way. It's really important to us, that kind of personalization elements.
That's really cool. So the character evolves as they, gain experience through the world, but also they
Yeah.
evolve with your play style and the weapons and armor they choose to use.
Evolution, it's a huge running theme of the game. It's evolution, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. If you want to play the game without fighting a single spider, no worries. If you want to be best mates with the bees, just like Justin there, you can. If you want to do a sample of everything, you can do that as well. It's all there to explore and evolve and play as you see fit.
If you want to craft armor with wings and soar through the skies, you can do that.
That's a fan favorite. So yeah, I think literally nearly everyone is doing that. Doing that stuff. But for instance, the wings will not protect you from the cold. So if it's winter and the storm kicks off, it's entirely up to you. Do you want to glide around, or do you want to be kind of like battle ready? Because if the storm kicks off, and you're fighting, say, a giant spider boss or something like that, it will interrupt what you're doing, and the weather is going to kill you. If it's really bad. So do you manage, and do you basically tool up for that, or do you specialize? There is no right or wrong answer. It's entirely there for you to pick and choose.
Cool. So we've obviously seen a lot of trees in and around Smallland, and we just saw our character take a kind of a longing look up at a tall tree. So one thing that people might not know is there's a huge amount of verticality in Smallland.
Yeah.
And this is linked to building, which we're seeing now. So can you tell us a bit about the role the trees play in building and building itself?
Yeah. So there's kind of two different aspects. So one is the kind of goals for Smallland is for you. You build your own little kind of nice areas and do what you want. You start off with like a little camp and you can build everywhere, but you're also at the same time trying to get your people out from underground and into re-inherit the world. So your role as a vanguard, as opposed to the Pathfinders, is to kind of go out and trailblaze all this. So you're going to start building a huge base that starts off with a little home and turns into like almost a city in the trees. So when you build in the trees, you kind of claim a tree, and that's yours now, and you can then teleport all that stuff between servers as well. So you can play with friends, play solo, and you can teleport everything in there and pick a new tree and put it all there. And then with that, we tie trees into the lore. So the trees have always been these kind of great providers of, while they're underground, there's roots and things like that they can eat. But now the trees, we can go out, and they have these big protectors to get you off the ground. They protect you from the weather. So a lot of the kind of style where we see like the UI and the crafting, a lot of little things, there's all kind of intertwined roots and things like that, and leaves, and that's because the small folk, they're not obsessed with trees or anything like that, but it's part of their culture. It's trees. They drink nectar, they eat mushrooms, and they live in trees.
And obviously players can band together to go and fight and take on threats. Can players build together?
Yeah, you can build stuff together. We're going to have it so you can share resources. You can actually build your trees and have them almost touch. And then when you move between servers, you can actually have things like that, and between things. But yeah, it's a cooperative game because of exploration. If you don't play, if you want to play solo, but you play with someone else, you just happen to bump into them. Everything we do promotes, kind of cooperative multiplayer. So the benefit is always easier, and it feels like you're building this big utopia together, but you still feel naked and alone kind of as you start out. So yeah, we want players to really encouraged to play together, and there's lots of benefits to that. But again, the whole game you can play solo as well. Some of the bosses are very, very hard, so you might have to wait. But again, part of the exploration thing is finding things that you aren't ready for yet and having a crack. That's what people do in multiplayer games. It's good fun. So again, yeah, we've had really good feedback, and playing with people has been good. And one of the things is everyone's so tiny. They're hard to see, but you realise you bump into someone, it does actually feel really nice. Or you're messing around and someone leaps over your head and a grasshopper, or goes flying past and a dragonfly. It feels good.
Well, thanks, Kev, for taking the time to talk through in a bit more detail some of the gameplay elements and things that are at play in the world of Small Land. It's been really fun. Can't wait to share more with you. Anything final from yourself?
No, just thanks. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all support we've had. Look out for the demo coming in October. Feel free to join our Discord, and thanks for Aaron and Discord for all the love and support. It's great. It's really, really good. Don't forget to wish us the game.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
No worries. Cheers.
Hello everybody and welcome to Death Run TV. I'm Si.
And I'm Rob.
And we are Laserdog Games.
Death Run TV is a super fast twin stick arcade style shooter.
Yeah, we got our influences from films like The Running Man and
Logan's Run? No, not Logan's Run. I got that completely wrong.
Yeah, I don't know what that film is.
Oh, it's great. You should watch it.
I hear the name of it all the time, but I never know.
Instant classic.
But yeah, it's games set in the future. It's contenders signing their souls away for fame and fortune, and basically to try and survive this game show of absolute doom and carnage.
All for the influence, all for the fame, all for the likes.
So we made this game because we're massive fans of super fast arcadey feeling games. We feel like we want to get a bit of difficulty and a bit of challenge back into games, and we're definitely planning on doing that for the boys of this game. Loads of swearing, loads of violence. Originally the idea was to have a sort of super cute feel to the game, but ultra violent and kind of nasty.
Yeah, there's that real mixture in there, like size artwork. In parts it's really, really cute, but as you can see, there's blood and guts flying absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, we've gone totally nuts with particles and blood particles. I think we've got about 50 different types of blood particles in the game.
Yeah, as a developer and the person in control of the performance of the game, every now and again I'd be like, why is it running so slow? And I see that Simon's added like 10 billion particle effects for something really minute, and it's always great.
So this is just an example. We're just popping into a new arena here. So we've got a couple of different types of levels. We've got arena type levels, and then we have a path style level. You can see here we're just fighting a mid boss, and that's a wonderful little bug there.
It's not a bug, it's a feature.
But you can see we've got loads of different types of weapons. It's kind of all about weapons and all about carnage. I think it's probably going to be maybe about 30, 40 different types of weapons. We've also got loads of mutations in there as well, which you might see in a bit.
Yeah, the mutations are really fun. Like, we have ones where it makes you fly. We have ones like stats ones where like your guns are a bit more powerful or they charge faster and stuff like that. But we've also got like really crazy funny ones.
I love how that the bullet on this weapon sometimes spins around. Players not quite knowing what to hit. As soon as they move, they die. So you can see the world is destructible, particularly with this gun. You've got that little sort of spinning razor track moving around the level, and that actually follows the path as the new bit's carved out. Even though sometimes it gets it a bit wrong, which is kind of great too.
It's got a mind of its own because I programmed its mind.
Nice bit of randomness. The game is all procedurally generated, levels are procedurally generated, and the difficulty as well is also procedural.
The enemies you see, the weapons you get, the mutations you get.
Yeah, everything's going to be built on a sort of ranking system so that we've got this constant progression of difficulty and challenge. We kind of see the game as being open, endless runner and score based. So it's all about trying to get as far as you can, clear as many arenas as you can. And with progress, you see more and more mutations, weapons.
Yeah, you definitely unlock things over time that rewards your skill, basically. And I'm going to throw a few secrets in there as well.
Yeah, so this bit here, just kind of past a little arena section within a path, which is something that I think you added a couple of months ago.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun doing the level jam. So I should talk about the music. I made all the music on a tiny little handheld device called an M8, and it has just been the most fun project to work on ever because the game is so over the top. I could basically do whatever I wanted with the music. So there's loads of like death metal guitars, crazily distorted synths, massive drums, and it's just been an absolute joy to work on.
Yeah, I think Rob, you found about 5 different sounds during the development of this game, different musical styles.
Yeah, I went to chiptunes at one point. I think chiptune is still going to be in there, but not nearly as heavily focused as this kind of metal sound.
I'm super keen on the kind of doom style metal sound, and as soon as Rob played me some of this, I was just like, yeah, let's get this in. It feels probably encouraging to listen to that sort of music as you blast people's brains out. This is the first boss. Sorry, just completely ignoring you. First boss here. So this is what's this guy called again?
Megastomp.
Megastomp. And he's dead already. So that weapon's definitely overpowered.
And about an hour ago, that boss's hands were. I forgot to turn off the rigid body on the hands, so they were rotated in the most weird way, and it was quite funny, but we thought we'd better fix that.
Yeah, squishing bugs till the very last minute. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was the amount of time we put into making the feel of actually killing stuff in the game really spot on. So loads and loads of blood we've mentioned before, but the sort of push that we add to characters and stuff when you're actually shooting them, it feels really, really satisfying to hit them. And yeah, that was really nice, really good fun.
I think that's one of the things we really felt when we were making this game, because obviously we've all had such a terrible time with the pandemic and all the stresses that brings. We really wanted to make a game which was just such a stress reliever to play.
Which definitely influenced all the swearing, which has just kind of come in the last few weeks. We're just like, oh my god, that would be so good if the contender swears all the way through at every single moment that he or she can.
Yeah, we are a bit worried about how sweary it is. Just
so many bitches. Which just seems all wrong, and you really don't want it to become the bitch game.
Yeah, it just kind of rolled off the tongue.
Oh, this is cool. You spotted this before. These gun sounds. That's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've put a lot of time into finding the right gun sounds. Again, this kind of, I really love the way the cute style of the game is crossed over with this absolutely wonderfully accurate gun sounds, which just sound really mean. There's a minigun blasting away there, and you might have heard the silenced pistol ticking away just a minute ago. There's a different machine gun sound on that double machine gun.
Yeah.
Really satisfying. And I'm talking over the whole thing, so you won't hear it anyway.
Let's leave a bit of silence. You ready? We had a lot of fun recording the vocals. I tried to do a voice, but I'm terrible. So Simon has voiced most of this game.
Yeah! I voiced a lot of our games.
And in this game, I think you are the announcer and the main character and most of the monsters. And on the night we recorded all the monsters, we had to send an email around our office building to ensure no one rang the police because he's basically screaming all night.
So we talked about glory kills. NPCs.
No, we haven't talked about glory kills.
So the way you pick up weapons, the way you pick up pretty much everything in the game at the moment is based on picking up NPCs. So we wanted to give them some sort of real inherent value.
So the weapons are balanced in such a way that you can get very, very powerful weapons, but it doesn't completely ruin your game. For example, if you got a really powerful weapon which made the game too easy, and you
Uzi, for example.
yeah, and you just held on to that, it would kind of just ruin the game because there's no challenge in that. So we added the durability system. So if you pick up a really powerful weapon from an enemy, if an enemy drops it when they die, it'll have like half its durability. So you won't be able to hold on for it for very long. But if you get a good weapon from saving a fan, then it'll have full durability, so you get to hold on to it for a very long time, but not for the whole run. So it kind of balances itself out there.
Yeah, the reason we wanted to get durability in as well, if you remember, is we didn't want to have that moment where you're out of bullets completely. So you never actually run out of bullets. You always default back to the pistols that you start with. So the durability does have an effect. But the main thing is you don't really run out of ammunition at any point. You can always fire.
We added ammo in at the beginning of the game, then got rid of it, then added it back in again, and then got rid of it. And, as a programmer, I really love doing that kind of thing. And it really, really feels so much better without having to worry what your ammo count is.
Yeah, it's
because
more,
you just
more
want to shoot.
arcadey.
Yeah, you just want to shoot stuff. And every single thing we put in the way of the player just having a blast playing this game, it's really difficult. We just want it to be as fun as possible, but not too easy, not too hard. And we did the same thing with the health. We used to have health pickups, we used to have a health bar, we used to have health containers like in Zelda, we used to have armor, and we just replaced that with the most simple health system where it's a single heart, it's split in 3 levels, and the heart recharges over time, so you don't have to worry about what your health is. You just need to dodge bullets and have a good time.
So we're the kind of developers who change things up until the very last point, which really upsets publishers and platforms.
Yeah, this started out as a golf game.
So ideas like that, it's very hard to kind of decide what's going to be right for any particular game. And for this one, like Rob said, we had loads of different iterations of almost everything in the game. The fundamentals for at least the toy.
I think he rode a motorbike at one point.
Yeah, the motorbike's still in there somewhere. Who knows? We might be able to squeeze that in somehow. Okay, so the health system we've mentioned before. You take damage. You can take 2 hits. Each one recharges, so you take 2 hits, take a 3rd hit, you die. There's a flat kind of counter on how quick you recharge, but I think we're going to have a mutation, or we have a mutation.
There's a mutation in there which makes that recharge quicker, yeah.
Yeah, so you can get your health back quicker. That little heart above the player at the moment is just a kind of visual indication, because what we did notice fairly early on is that nobody looks at the UI in this game because it's way too hectic. So we're kind of having to jam stuff in and around the player so you get some idea of what the hell is going on. You've got the crowd around the stadium, and you can hear them. They all sort of cheer, and there's a system in there for when action happens in the game. So
Yeah,
like explosion.
they have an excitement.
Yeah.
So when certain elements happen, you add to their excitement, and that raises the pitch and the volume and the intensity of the samples that are used.
And I can't tell you how excited Rob got when you actually came up with that system. You're like, oh my god, I've got this awesome way of making the crowd scream and shout at every little moment. So that's really, really cool. So I wanted to make the silence pistol. The silence pistol originally came into the game because we were going to do
sound-based enemy finding you.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's just too fast and too frantic for that.
So we kind of had to find a reason to keep the silence pistol because it sounds so great. So basically, it's a really fast auto-fire gun with a very small capacity. It's a really slow amount of ammunition before it burns out. It's one of our friends screaming there, doing the female voice for us. Basically doing very similar voice acting to me, but much better.
Yeah, and she was just riffing as well. Like, there's so much stuff we didn't ask for, which is in there, which is just so good. Oh, we're just made to bits with it, really.
This is the boss Larson. He's based off his name comes from the biggest ice shelf in Antarctica, I think, which I thought was really cool.
I did not know that.
But yeah, he kind of paints ice all over the studio that you're fighting him in, which obviously makes it really difficult for you to move around. So yeah, we're back to round one. Oh, this is something that we added fairly late in the game, is the ability to jump over the holes, and that really made a big difference. So some enemies can't get over holes, some can. There's obviously spikes as well on the floor which you can jump over, which enemies can walk over without being affected. And it just really helps to kind of force the player to move around all the time and kind of have that Doom dance moment, I guess, which is something that one of the influences of the game. Really big fans of Doom and Brutal Doom and Modern Doom as well, the 2016 onwards. So yeah, one of the issues that we've had with the game is trying to get that visual balance between absolute franticness and some kind of understanding of what it is you're meant to be doing, what it is you're meant to be killing. And so we came up with the sort of visual marker on all the enemies, the sort of red circle that sits underneath them, and then the green circle underneath the NPCs. It's pretty straightforward, but in a game like this where it's so fast, even us as devs and testers of the game, you quite often shoot crowd guys. Yeah, Another thing that happens in the game is we have sort of spawning zombies. And what happens with them is that if you hang around too long in a particular place, they start spawning around.
Yeah, that was actually really fun to develop because the way that works is when you are in the level, you apply heat to the tiles that are around you. So if you stay still, they get hotter and hotter and hotter, and if they get to a certain temperature, they will spawn an enemy. And you soon learn that the more you stay still, the more enemies spawn to try and kill you.
So this is the shot volver, which is basically a shotgun sounding pistol, but it shoots shells, which works slightly differently to bullets.
I love this track. I loved making it.
Rob's just having a moment.
Oh, this is the new one, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm glad it's in.
So what else can we talk about? So everybody hates spikes. So we put out an early demo of the game, and that was sort of feedback that we got. But that was one of the big reasons why we added the jump in there, and also to putting a bit more focus on these sort of arena-shaped levels, so that we force players to jump over the spikes easy in this one again to get over there. Got to jump over either the hole or the spikes. Boss died so quickly. Oh, it's super shotgun.
The game was originally completely 2D. It's top down, and it was completely flat with no depth at all. And I just had this idea that we could add, because we're in Unity anyway, so we've got the 3D camera, we could just add a bit of like fake depth. So all the characters are actually tilted towards the camera on their x-axis, and we just do a bit of fakery with the tile map. We rotate some of the tiles, and it adds this like illusion of depth.
So one of the issues with making a 2D game 3D is understanding where things are, particularly when they're near the bottom wall. If you come down to the lower wall, we've actually got transparency in the wall so that you can actually see everything that's going on in between. So Rob came up with this idea of making the walls kind of glassy, which solves so many issues.
I think we should tell a full story of that.
Go.
So the problem is you can't see things when they go behind the bottom wall. So for 6 months we on and off battled with that, trying all different kinds of things. And then one day Simon was off, and I was like, why don't I make the walls glass? And it took me about 3 minutes to implement, and I was like, oh, that solves it. So sometimes the simplest solution is the solution.
Definitely works. I think at one point we forced the player and the enemies to not go near the wall, and then it was just the enemies, and it was just like, oh, this is horrible.
But it was a real problem where there'd be enemies hiding below the walls, and also all of the bottom walls are lowered about 20 pixels, aren't they?
That's
Which
right.
makes the level gen and the level rendering so insanely complicated. You can't tell, the player, you can't tell, but that added so much dev time. Like, just that little 20 pixels down on all of those tiles, all the different variations and stuff. Thinking about it now, we don't need that because of the glass.
So thanks for watching. This has been Death Run TV. We hope you enjoyed our ramblings, and we hope you enjoy our game. Thanks. Thank you.
Hello PAX Digital, Ross here from Merge Games along with Kerry Vanderberg from Maple Powered Games. We're here on a pre-recorded gameplay session to show you and tell you all about Monster Harvest. It's going to be myself and of course the owner of Maple Powered Games, Kerry Vanderberg. So Monster Harvest is available right now on Steam, and depending on what day this video actually airs, you might still be able to take advantage of the launch day discount, which gives you a fantastic 15% off in Steam. Or if you want to have a little try before you buy, there's also a free demo which gives you 10 in-game days in Planimal Point, which is where Monster Harvest is set. So if you want to give it a little try before you buy, you can take advantage of the free demo available now on Steam. So Monster Harvest is based in, like I mentioned before, in the wonderful little town of Planimal Point. Kerry, I've spoken for long enough. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Monster Harvest?
Thanks, Ross. Monster Harvest is a monster collecting and farming simulator that was made by Maple Powered Games, which I founded about 3 years ago. It's our first major title in conjunction with Merge Games.
Yeah.
We're very, very excited to finally get it out, and I think fans are as well. We really
Absolutely.
want to make a casual, laid-back farming experience, and I think we've done a pretty good job so far, and we're really looking forward to everyone getting their hands on it finally.
Absolutely. Well, myself included, I've been playing it on my Switch non-stop. Although it's, I get paid to do it, I also like to have a go on my free time. So, in our past conversation before we started recording, you mentioned, that Monster Harvest is, it's based on a few games that's inspired you. We've also had, people on the community commenting on, oh, I'm getting, XYZ game vibes and things like that. So why don't you tell us, from the horse's mouth, what were your inspirations for Monster Harvest?
So I really wanted to make a game that reminded me of the kinds of games that I played growing up. So the first video game console that I ever had was a Sega Genesis.
Wow.
So and later
Wow.
and later a Super Nintendo. So the inspirations I think are pretty on the nose. A little bit of Harvest Moon, a little bit of Pokemon, a little bit of Legend of Zelda thrown in there, and a few others as well. Really wanted to pay homage to the classics, but put a new modern spin on everything.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head with that. Well, so fair play. You mentioned before, again, when we were talking about this recording, that there are a whole bunch of Easter eggs in the game from the games of your childhood, and so can you give us a little bit of hints, on what the players can expect to find in terms of Easter eggs?
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to make the characters in the game very vibrant, and there's always characters in video games, especially ones that you grew up with, that resonate with you. So we took some pretty clear inspirations from a few characters from this earlier Genesis and Nintendo games, and kind of inspired some of our characters around those. One of my favorites is Spike, which is an homage that I hope the community figures out.
Oh, okay. So we're not going to say who that is then. Let them guess at it. No problem.
I think it's pretty clear.
No worries. So you mentioned you've had some inspirations from games like Zelda to Pokemon, and sort of how did it crop up into your head? To mix Pokemon with farming.
When I originally thought of the idea, it seemed kind of like a pretty natural fit. I remember. Actually waited outside of a Walmart before it opened to get Pokemon Silver for Game Boy Color back in the day.
When people used to queue for games, wow.
Yes. I was very, very excited. A friend of mine actually slept over, so we could both get it and then play against each other that morning.
That's amazing.
But I remember in that game they introduced the nursery feature or a daycare feature where you could drop off your Pokemon and they'd be raised in your absence, but I wanted to kind of expand it in that sense and have you potentially raise those kinds of creatures yourself and expand that. And then from there, the gameplay just evolved and fit the two genres perfectly.
And Monster Harvest was born. That's amazing.
Exactly.
That's amazing. So, the demo, which is available right now, one of the things that we've had with people commenting, in the Discord, on the Steam discussion boards, was people were really loving the art style. The 2.5D visuals, the vibrant colors. Where did the visual sort of aesthetic come from? How did you guys sort of decide on that?
Yes, we are very, very particular when it comes to our visuals. When I first started the company, I wanted to make a game like the classics, but not constrained like the hardware was back in the day. So we came up with the philosophy that we would make everything with a nostalgia feature built in. So we want to make the game with your rose-colored glasses built right into the system.
Wow, that's amazing. Sorry, go on.
Yes. So part of that is a big limitation of earlier hardware was colors. So we immediately said, no, we're not going to limit the color layers as well. Back at the Genesis and Super Nintendo couldn't handle too many sprite layers on top of each other, whereas I think ours can handle like 600,000 layers or something, and that gave us the idea to do the 2.5D, so you could see things moving in front of and behind each other, just to make it pop a little more.
Yeah, those are sorts of things like that I didn't know previously, and you learn through this sort of type of conversation. So, I mean, like the fact that you've made your games, with your mind's eye in the thought process. Like I've played games in the past, and like you've said, where you go back to them, you're like, oof, I do not remember this game looking like that. but the fact that you sort of like, I remember the games of my childhood being vibrant, and you've put that into it. That's amazing. So yeah, job well done there.
Thank you.
Not at all. So moving on, we've talked about your inspiration for Monster Harvest, the games that inspired the visual aesthetic. Off camera, you've told me about your past career and past jobs, and if you're comfortable about talking about that a little bit, how did you get from where you were to making video games?
Yeah, so I like to think I have a pretty interesting background.
Yep.
I kind of did all the most stressful jobs you possibly could. I started in the Army for 4 years, went into finance as a stockbroker, and also worked in politics concurrently.
Good Lord.
I didn't really... wasn't really enjoying the financial industry, and I've always been passionate about gaming. And what I found when I started looking into starting Maple Powered Games was that I could really bring my organizational management from the military into an indie studio and keep us on track, meet our deadlines, and get the games that we wanted out the door without getting kind of locked down in feature creep.
Wow. So your military sort of like regimented experience, up at 0600, at the desktop, reporting to superiors, that sort of thing.
Yeah, maybe not that early, but not anymore.
But if they're late, it's like drop and give me 20 lines of code.
Exactly. Yeah, I can't make them do actual push-ups, but we keep pretty tight schedules.
Amazing. So obviously, with the demo, the demo is available, and the feedback we've had off the back of that, as well as the beta, has been incredibly helpful. So, what single piece of feedback that we've had, either from whether it's the demo or the beta or the community, what piece of feedback has been most sort of meaningful to you?
Well, a lot of the feedback and the way we like to design our games is based on what we like to see in other games. What people ask for is what we want to incorporate. So the community ended up with a lot of very, very good ideas, particularly adding additional characters, and one of the features for the Planimal Pen, where when your Planimals aren't in your active roster, you can still see them moving around on your farm, and it's one of those ideas that makes you think, why didn't I think of that? And of course that has to be in this game.
That's amazing. Yeah, because the Planimal Pen is one of the first things you see when you get your farm from your uncle, and and as you sort of like populate your party, you get, and when you have sort of spare Planimals and you get to see them, I think frolicking is the most accurate word, sort of frolicking around in the Planimal Pen. It's a wonderful touch to sort of to make that home yours.
Oh, absolutely, and it's exactly what we want to get across with the game, and people have been pulling in even more suggestions that we're going to keep trying to add to the game to keep expanding it out to be exactly what the community wants.
Wow. Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So, we've talked about stuff that's been added into the game. We've added, you've added so much content off the back of the beta as well, and that's why we unfortunately, delayed the game. So what about early concepts? Was there anything that you originally sort of wanted or intended for the game that just didn't make the cut?
Yes, there's 12 basic crops in the game, and then 30 additional hybrid crops, and each of the base crops can be mutated with our slime system.
Yeah.
and so you've got the 6 slimes. If you do the math, it ends up being 72 mutations that players can experiment around with, and we don't really tell the players too exactly what they do, so you have to experiment to find out. There was originally an additional slime, I think it was purple slime.
Yeah.
It didn't work too well, and we had to cut it for time, but who knows in the future.
All right, fair enough. We've talked about your past careers and your transition into the video games industry. What's been the biggest surprise for you during the development of your first game?
I know I said we like to keep very tight schedules, but I think the biggest surprise is just how long it can take to develop a video game that you really want to
Yep.
to match the quality of your vision, and picking a game engine along with that is critical to succeeding in your goals, which is why we ended up going with the Unity engine. Although at the time we were also considering Game Maker, and when we started with Unity, it didn't have as much 2D tools as it does now, but as they developed it, that helped us out as well. So it was a continuous learning process throughout.
Yeah. And so what advice would you give to fellow developers working on their game, or more importantly, working on their very first title?
I would say the best piece of advice is to just get started. Just take your idea and run with it. Try to keep it simple, but start it. Don't leave it in the idea phase. Part of your vision will come through as you make it, or I guess in the army they would say no plan survives contact with the enemy, so you might as well just start moving in the direction and get going, and you'll reach your destination eventually.
I like it. So that's your advice for your fellow devs. If you could go back and see bright-eyed, bushy-tailed Kerry Vanderberg just starting out on his game development journey, what's the one piece of advice you'd give yourself?
I think the biggest piece of advice would be don't change any graphics halfway through. Don't switch to 2.5D partway through development.
Oh, who would do that, right?
Oh, I know.
So you've mentioned game engines. You're looking at Unity and I've forgotten the second one you've mentioned. What was the
Game Maker?
Game Maker, of course, yeah. So how long did you spend deciding, which game engine was right for Monster Harvest, and what were the factors that played into it in that decision?
We did also look into the Unreal Engine. First, we started with costs, pricing, ease of use. I think we spent about 3 months deciding on it. I think we did make the right choice going with Unity because of its flexibility and
Yep.
continued support.
Excellent.
I don't think we would have been able to hit as many platforms without it.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. And I think you mentioned as well, obviously, like since they began, Unity have offered or they've implemented more support for the style of games that you guys are creating.
Yeah, absolutely. So they did, midway through development, they did introduce the universal render pipeline, which is what our game runs on. And it did include a number of 2D specific features throughout, and just a lot of the tools like the Sprite Atlas and sprite slicing and pivoting and the various renders really works well, even though you have to do a lot of it.
Excellent. So we've talked about the games you've played in your childhood that sort of inspired you to make Monster Harvest, and we it's obvious what those inspirations are when you play Monster Harvest. What type of games do you enjoy playing sort of these days to unwind?
I still enjoy playing anything I can get my hands on that's indie or pixel art.
Nice.
I like to look at how everyone else is doing it, but I also do enjoy a very good RPG like Fallout or Skyrim, but who doesn't love those games?
The classics, yeah. So how does it feel knowing, depending on what day this is, it's in September, how does it feel knowing that players are now playing your very first title? Not just a demo, not just like a little slice of it, but from beginning to end, people are now experiencing the experience that you set out to create for people.
Nerve-wracking and exciting at the same time.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up, doesn't it? Terrifying and exciting. Yes.
It's a good exciting, or a good terrifying.
It's a good energy. Yeah, yeah. You want people to enjoy it, but also, yeah, I get it. So we've said before that to the community that while it's it's a great day for Monster Harvest. On the day of release, we said that it's a great day for Monster Harvest, but that this is just the beginning, of people's adventures and their time and their experiences in Planable Point. We have, I don't want to say roadmap, but for want of a better word, we have a type of roadmap that's planned full of worthwhile additions to augment, players' experience, and basically we want to have players to continue coming back to Monster Harvest. When they complete the game, we want these updates for people to come back to Monster Harvest and experience the new content we're adding. So that said, it's easy for me to say, being the marketing guy, but from the developer standpoint, can we give a little sneaky hint as to what the community can look forward to in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I mentioned before that we like games ourselves where they put a focus on community, and I love games where when they release an update, they list top requested community features. So that's how we're running our update plans as well.
Oh,
and,
okay, very interesting.
So they've had a lot of requests so far that have come through. A lot of really good ideas, but I think the most requested feature is more planimals. So we do have plans for that as well.
Oh, okay. So watch this space then. Say no more. Say no more. Leave them wanting more. So Maple Power Games was, of course, a year into development when Merge and Maple began sort of discussing, and when we eventually teamed up. So what is it that made you begin, or what is it that made you decide that Maple Power Games need the help of a publisher to bring their game to the public?
Yes, as much as I knew about organization and video game development, as we went through the development cycle, the marketing and console porting and localization of a video game are just totally different beasts. So we knew that we needed support, and we have definitely got it from Merge. So we have no complaints whatsoever. Merge is an awesome partner, and we love working with you guys.
That's fantastic. I'll be sure to tell my boss. So I think that's a good spot to wrap up. To the people watching this video, thank you so much for staying tuned and watching the gameplay, listening to Kerry and I talk. We hope you found the conversation interesting. If you have any other questions, feel free to get in touch with us, via socials or Twitter, or even on the Steam page. And just to say, on the behalf of myself, Ross at Merge, and Kerry and his team at Maple Powered Games, we want to say a massive thank you to the Monster Harvest community for your love and support. Nothing more to say other than you can play Monster Harvest right now. You can get it on Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and of course PC. And if you want to try before you buy, you can download a free Monster Harvest demo on Steam right now, which lets you take a little visit to Planable Point before you actually decide to move there. So thank you once again. Take care, folks. Bye!